Good afternoon, folks. Robert Chappell here, Executive Editor, Madison365, with your daily update for Thursday. Is it Thursday? It's hard to tell. December 30th. Mostly bad news today. One little sliver of good news, maybe. We'll add a couple of little slivers of good news for the time being. But overall, I've got some not very good news for you today. The first thing I'll tell you is for folks in Madison, you need to be aware, and you probably already are because you got an email from the school district letting you know that the school district was supposed to resume classes as normal as we can do with masking and everything in person on Monday, January 3rd. Given Dane County's situation where we've seen almost 1,100 new cases just today in a county that's used to seeing 30 or 40 cases in a day on a bad day. We're over almost 1,100 today. And our daily average in Dane County is well over 500 now. Positive test rate in Dane County is over 9%, which that has typically been well below 3%. With all that in mind, the school district has decided not only, first of all, to delay return to class till Thursday the 6th. And when they do return to class on Thursday the 6th, it'll be virtual. Going back to virtual instruction in Madison Metro School District. Staff will return on January 3rd in order to give themselves a few days to prepare, and in order to give, parents and whoever else a few days to prepare. We've all been through this before. We got to do it again if you're in Madison. Now, there is no indication as to when in-person classes would resume. However, the school district press release did say that the community would be given an update on Thursday next week. So the same day that virtual classes start, you'll get an update. I don't know what they're going to update. The way I read that is that they're hoping to be able to tell us next week, Thursday, when in-person classes would resume. Or, I'm just speculating, or tell us like the indicators of when the number of new cases gets to this level, or when the positive test rate gets back down to 3%. We'll, those things to watch for. There is a virtual media availability tomorrow morning, a press conference basically tomorrow at 10 a.m. I plan to attend that, and I don't know if there'll be any interesting updates or not. If there are, I will report them. I'll post them on Madison365.org, and I'll talk to you about them tomorrow. So why is this happening? It's obviously Omicron is hitting Wisconsin hard, just like it's hitting everywhere else. The numbers today, the spread numbers, the numbers that indicate how fast the virus is spreading, are very bad today. The numbers that indicate the consequences, the hospitalizations and deaths, are not so bad today, but you expect those death and hospitalization numbers to lag by a week or two, or more sometimes. So the deaths and hospitalizations do not reflect what's happening in the spread numbers right now, which is why they're feeling a little bit okay. And we can cross our fingers and hope that they don't get bad, right? So here's what we're seeing. 7,772 new confirmed cases today in the state of Wisconsin. That puts our 7-day average of new cases at 4,230. That's by far the highest in 2021. The previous high was 3,847. So our 7-day average beats our previous record for this year by 400. The last time we were over 4,200 as a 7-day average, not a single day, was November 28th, 2020, and that was on the way down. And we peaked at 6,400 cases per day in mid-November last year, and it came down from there. We hit 4,200 on the way up in late October last year. Okay, so we're a little bit delayed in terms of the time of year, but we're hitting a new variant at this point. The other indicator that we need to talk about is positive test rate, which is again very high. Yesterday it was. This is all the tests in the past 7 days. Which, by the way, we're still doing a lot of testing, right? You hear about people having a hard time getting a test or waiting in long lines for tests. The state is still testing a lot of people every day, 30 to 40,000 people. Most of them are people who are in healthcare or in other professions where they're testing every day or a couple times a week, right? So yesterday I reported to you, I think it was like 16.3% or something. It was something very high yesterday. Yesterday's number has now been revised upward to, ready, 18.5. Today, we're reporting 18.3, which every day of the past 10, I think, 7 to 10 days, every day has been revised upward the next day a little bit. Yesterday got revised upward by more than 2 full percentage points. So it is possible that the real number today is close to 20%. Our previous high in the entire pandemic was 17.5. So we've already beaten our previous record by a full percentage point, and that is because of two things. Number one, this is the number of cases, right? Number two, not enough testing. Right, I did say we're still doing a lot of testing, but obviously not as much. Right, we don't have the big community testing sites open. Although we did learn this morning that Dane County is ready to ramp up again its testing site at Alliant Energy Center. It's just seeking the necessary state approvals, but it sounds like it's going to happen. That Dane County at least will start testing again at that site where, we saw last year, we saw 3 and 4 hour waits for tests there, which is not great, but we'll take what we can get in terms of testing. It's also possible that folks are able to find home tests, testing negative at home, and then not going to get a test. So basically a whole bunch more negative tests at the state level would drive down the percentage, right? You get more negative tests. It means the proportion of all the tests that are positive will go down. I don't think that's happening in enough volume to meaningfully affect these numbers. Now, I did mention that there's some slightly less horrible news on the consequence side of things. We are not seeing a big spike in hospitalizations right now. That's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, hospitalizations lag behind cases by a week or so. Right? So when you see, and it's not just that one person tests positive and then goes to the hospital a week later. It's just the flow of things is that there's a increase in cases, and then a week later there's an increase in hospitalizations. So we're not seeing that big hospitalization spike yet right now. However, we are still seeing today there are more people in the hospital than any other day this year. Our previous high earlier in December was 1,714 people. Today, there are 1,715 people, which is only 3 more than yesterday. That's why I say that the spike is not bad. It's basically steady since yesterday after 3 days of really big increases. Right? So this is not good news exactly. This is like 1 day of slightly less bad news. Right? The last 3 days we went up by 80 and then 72 and then 49 and then today only up by 3. Okay. So it's a small pause in a sharp increase. Our ICU population actually went down from 419 to 407. There are now 73 ICU beds available in the entire state of Wisconsin. Almost all of them are either in Madison or Milwaukee. So the rest of the state is very short on ICU beds, and this is causing places like UW Health here in Madison to start to feel the effects because they're taking on patients from other regions. where the ICU beds are gone for the most part. So we are hearing reports of emergency departments who are overwhelmed, who are not able to take car accident victims, heart attack victims, strokes, those sorts of things, because they're overwhelmed with COVID patients, because a COVID patient takes about 3 times as much resources as any other individual patient. It's like one new COVID patient is like taking on 3 new patients from a staff and resources perspective. Right. Now, the other thing we are seeing right now is that the deaths are also sort of leveled off. But again, this is about a 4-week delay. So our current deaths, which is right now we're at 22 per day, which is still a lot. Right. Yesterday was 24, though, so it's slightly lower. That's 30 new confirmed deaths today. But those are deaths that happened a month ago or so. Right. It takes that long for that. Somebody dies of COVID, and it takes a month for it to show up in this set of data. Okay, so now we're at 10,044 total confirmed COVID-19 deaths, and that does not count people. I want to be very clear about this, because this is a thing you'll hear if you spend any time on Facebook, you'll hear this. That is, people get COVID and then die in a car accident, and it's kind of as a COVID death. That is just a lie. That is just flatly false. Right? Anybody who has COVID-19 and then dies of other causes is not our medical examiners in this state are responsible enough to put the actual cause of death on the death certificate. And it's that death certificate that gets counted in this data. Right? If you're posthumously tested and you're positive for COVID-19, you go in as a COVID-19 case, but not as a COVID-19 death. Okay, so 10,044 people confirmed to have died of COVID-19. 1,107 deaths in the state of Wisconsin in the past year and a half are considered probable COVID-19 deaths. So in all likelihood, we're well over 11,000 deaths, actually. But 10,044 is the confirmed count. But the daily average is now 22, which means that it has not exactly followed along with the cases. However, if you're looking at a delay of 4 to 6 weeks, you look about 4 weeks ago, sort of like late November, we were looking at 3,000 cases a day, 3,100 cases a day, something like that. So that 22 deaths per day a month later is, a little bit less than 1% of the daily cases have translated into daily deaths. For much of 2020, that number was right at 1% or a little bit more than 1%, 1.2% or so. What that indicates to me is that we're seeing a case fatality rate that's down slightly, which is moderately good news, right? It would be much better to only lose 0.5% of everybody who's infected. But here's the problem with that. If the percentage of people who die goes down, but the number of people who get infected goes way, way up, even a lower percentage will translate to more people dying. Right? So that's not actually that really, really good news at all. So I would anticipate seeing slightly less than 1% of, so let's say today, 7,700 new cases today. Last year we would have assumed that about 77 of those people would die. What, 1%? So now we say it's slightly less than 1%. We're going to say maybe 50 of those people will die. That's still a lot, right? And if we get to 10,000 cases, okay, so it's less than 100 people. So it's 80 people instead of 100 people die. It's still too many, right? It's still a lot. I would anticipate, once again, I'll remind everybody for context that the leading cause of death in Wisconsin and everywhere in the United States is heart disease. The daily average all year long, 12 months of the year, 365 days of the year, 31 deaths from heart disease in Wisconsin. So if COVID, there was a period of time last year when this was the case. It was about 2 months when COVID was the leading cause of death. It's not the leading cause of death for the year, right? But it's the leading cause of death for that month. If the daily average is over 31 for a month, it's the leading cause of death in that period of time. And then you measure it out over the year, and it's like the second or third highest cause of death in Wisconsin, which is, I don't know. This is no good. That's not good news, right? So I would anticipate reaching that in a couple more weeks, probably. I think I would imagine by the middle of January we'll be in the 30s in terms of deaths per day. I hope that prediction doesn't come true, but it might, and we'll have to see. There was a very brief period last year where we were in the 60s in terms of deaths, and we might get there again. If this continues for much longer, where we had 6,000 something cases yesterday, 7,700 today. If that continues and we're like doing 8,000 cases in the next few days, like that's going to lead to a lot of hospitalizations and deaths in the coming weeks. Even if it's less than 1% die, it's still going to be a high number, right? Which is not good at all. So that's we'll just have to keep track of it. Jamie has a good question here. Is this variant less severe? The easy answer to that, from my understanding, I'm not a scientist, I'm a journalist, right? So I listen to everything the scientists say and try to figure out what's true and try to communicate it back to you. The short answer to that question is yes. It does seem that Omicron is less severe. Not very much less severe. Don't let anybody tell you it's a lot less severe. It's not a lot less severe. What it looks like right now is that if you're unvaccinated and you get Delta versus Omicron, if you're unvaccinated, you are slightly less likely to be hospitalized if you get Omicron rather than Delta. Slightly less if you're unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you're not likely to land in the hospital with either one. And if you're boosted, you're even less likely to land in the hospital. We will get a better picture of this data in Wisconsin on January 15th. The state has been updating that data on the 15th of every month. So we'll get to see the disparity between vaccinated versus unvaccinated. But one of the reasons that Omicron is leading to less death and less hospitalization is that it's affecting a lot of vaccinated people. We don't have a good breakdown right now. Like I said, we'll get this breakdown on the 15th of January. But it's reasonable to assume, especially in somewhere like Dane County, where 78% of us are fully vaccinated and boosted, and we're still getting 1,000 cases a day, that the only way that could possibly happen is if a lot of those infections are vaccinated people who are not going to get to go to the hospital because they're just going to be miserable at home. When we say a mild case, you'll get a mild case of it. And a mild case, anecdotally, from what I'm hearing, a mild case is still really miserable, where you're stuck at home feeling like, swear word, feeling really, really bad for several days. So it seems like it is less severe, only because a lot of the people it's affecting are protected against the worst effects. So to answer your question, JB, yes, it's less severe just on its own. It's slightly less severe, and it's affecting vaccinated people. So the actual impacts are much less severe when it's affecting vaccinated people. I saw this over 20,000 cases in Ohio. I haven't done the math, but this is why we like to look at the population of Ohio is higher than Wisconsin. But we're looking at it in Wisconsin with 7,700 new cases, almost 7,800. That's 134 cases per 100,000 people. That's very high. Gene, thank you. If you're joining us late, I talked about this when I first came on. But Madison Metro School District is going virtual. Not only are they going virtual, they're actually delaying the start of virtual classes to Thursday. They were supposed to start Monday, just normally in person with masks on, and have announced now that that staff will return Monday as normal. School will start Thursday, and it will be virtual. So you have a week to figure it out. And addition to that, they're going to make some sort of announcement next Thursday about next steps. I assume they're hoping to be able to tell you when they'll go back to in-person classes. Next Thursday, they'll at least be able to announce that, or make some sort of announcement about what metrics they'll be looking at to make that decision or whatever. So I would not be shocked to see other school districts follow suit, especially in Dane County, where things are better than the rest of the state. As I mentioned, today the rest of the state, the entire state positive test rate is 18.3%. Dane County is 9.1%. So Dane County is in bad shape, but much better than the rest of the state. But Dane County has also been just typically much more cautious. Dane County is the only place in the state that still has a mask mandate. So Dane County school leaders are just by their nature sort of going to be more cautious and more quick to close schools again, which I don't love. I don't. But what we're also seeing is a nationwide 58% increase in hospitalizations of children. Still not very many. It's like 334 people, 334 children per day being admitted to hospitals because of COVID-19. That's not a lot when you're talking about the entire population of the United States. But what's the threshold, right? What's the minimum number of children hospitalized that you're willing to tolerate, right? Does a 58% increase make you rethink closing schools again? I don't know. We're also seeing a significant increase in childhood infections here in Wisconsin. It's still not a lot, but they're increasing, and they're increasing faster. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but the fastest growing group of infections is kids. There's still many more. Almost like the vast majority of infections are in adults. But the one age group that is growing the fastest, from a very small number to a slightly less small number to a larger number, is children. So, this kind of makes sense to think about schools again. Laura makes a good case here. And Laura, take a look at the comments there if you can, folks. So this is, to me, the problem is right away. In the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was talking about reopening the economy. Reopen the economy. That was the slogan, the buzzword. Reopen the economy. I would have preferred reopen society, right? If we focus on the economy, you're talking about restaurants, retail, all important, right? But we place those things as a priority over opening schools. And one of the reasons we had to keep schools closed is because we opened all those other things, and opening all those other things led to this mess we're in. And it's also true that in Wisconsin, we will not be able to close any of those things again because of the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court ruled in March of last year that state emergency health orders are illegal. Emergency health orders are not illegal. Emergency health orders cannot close businesses, basically. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate you listening to the podcast. We will. We weren't going to do an episode today because tomorrow is supposed to be a day off, a holiday for us. But given the situation, I think we will record a pod. But if you're watching today, like the podcast tomorrow morning, it's only 10 minutes podcast. Will be basically the same information. But I'll come on tomorrow. I wasn't going to do a live tomorrow because it was supposed to be a day off. But I'll come on tomorrow and do at least a brief live with whatever numbers we see tomorrow, and with whatever information I learned from the school district in the briefing tomorrow morning. Okay, so if you have any other questions, drop them in the chat. We can hang for a minute here, but I will mention one other thing, if you'll indulge me. Obviously, this is really important information, right? And a lot of you have expressed in the comments that you appreciate that we here at Madison365 are not only honest about it, that we're not trying to scare you. We're not trying to scare you, right? We're just trying to give you the actual information. We're not trying to drive clicks or anything like that. We're giving you the real information. So, which means that when we say it's bad, it's bad, right? You can trust us, right? Not only that, but in the meantime, while we're doing all this information, we're also telling you stories that no other media outlets are telling you, right? We're telling you about Judge Everett Mitchell and how he challenged a guy in his courtroom that if you make your goals, you stay off drugs, you do this and that and that, and I will come down off this bench and I will play a game of chess with you. And they did it, and the guy beat him, and it was a great story, very like human interest type story. Like you wouldn't see that in any other newspaper, right? We did that story. We're holding systems accountable. We're doing the kind of journalism that nobody else in this town is doing, and it's very, very important to us that we keep it free for you, because that kind of journalism can't be hidden behind a paywall. That's not for people who can afford it. It's for you. It's for all of you. It's for our community. But it's not free for us, right? We pay people to produce that journalism, right? We don't have a lot of overhead. We don't pay rent at an office. We don't. We have our biggest overhead is like just literally the monthly bill to keep the website online, right? So any money we bring in, almost all the money we bring in, gets reinvested into creating journalism. And a substantial portion of that money has to come from our community, from you. So if you want to, if you genuinely appreciate what we're doing here, I would love it if you just take a quick click over to Madison365.org/thefam, excuse me, and join the fam for $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you can do. Or if you select the one that says make your own level, you can also make a one-time donation if you'd prefer. And if you do that today or tomorrow, but to the end of the year, everything you donate is matched. This News Match program has been running since the 1st of November. This is our 5th time doing it. We've already broken our own records in terms of, those of you who have donated have really come through for us, right? We're trying to get to $20,000. We've already passed almost $19,000. So, we're at the very end of our goal. So if you want to help us push this over that $20,000 goal, now's the time. Okay. And anything you donate up until we hit 20,000 gets doubled. So, and it's your whole year that gets doubled too, by the way. If you join for $5 a month, they will give us another $5 a month for the whole year too. It's like free money for us, thanks to you, right? So that's my pitch. You might hear it one more time tomorrow as a kind of a last ditch, depending on how we do today. But until then, have a wonderful evening. Breathe deeply. Try not to worry too much, right? Keep your mask on. If you're not vaccinated, for heaven's sake, please go do that. Find a way. But otherwise, keep your mask on, stay home, enjoy your week, your evening as best you can. And like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with an update, and hopefully hopefully the news tomorrow isn't any worse than it is today. So we'll see. All right. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you soon.
This is 365 Media.